Hello, Lyric Armstrong, your real estate agent and advocate. I hope you are doing well. Right. Did you see the video I did? Okay. Look, like I'm so excited. I wanted to thank everyone for your subscription. And it doesn't tell me who subscribes, so I can't do that on an individual basis. And I just love that I'm able to give this away to you. So the ADT system for security will give you certain products for free, certain equipment for free. Check out that video, call them up, make sure you use my code so you can get those items for free. And it's 213-444-6336, 213-444-6336 when you call in the number, which I guess I can just bring it up real quick for you. So you can see it now, just in case you didn't see the video. Like, why not? We're here, we're getting ready for court. Let's save some money. I want to keep you guys protected. So if you yourself don't need it or you choose to use a different system, just make sure anyone else who does, in fact, want to use ADT can get these items for free, which is the remote access, the installation, like you get that. The touchscreen smart control, one motion detector, a doorbell camera, that's $250 right there if you pay out of pocket. So just some things you get for free, so forth and so on. Call the number. Their phone number is 1-844-347-8175, 1-844-347-8175, and use the code down here, 213-444-6336, so that you can get the items for free, right? You get the lock. Look at this. All right. So go ahead and stay safe. If it's not for you, share that with your loved ones. Maybe that's something that they want to look into for themselves. If you are a landlord and you provide an ADT security system for your property, you can add to the rent. So say the rents in the area are about, let's say it's just $1,200, right? You can add an extra $50 because you are saying to your tenant that you have a security system on site to help with their keeping their items secure and keeping the property secure. The other thing is, if you have a security system, you save money on your homeowner's insurance. Okay, so if you don't have a security system already, go ahead and get ADT. There are terms and conditions that apply, so check out what those are, see if that's something you're agreeable with. But with my code, you can get a discount and get you can get items for free. Okay. All right. So we're here. And today's video is taking us back to a sensitive place. Some time ago, I was looking at probate court. You know how I feel about probate. I want to keep us out of probate. I don't want your heirs and beneficiaries going to the courthouse and fighting over their inheritance, right? So I'm always promoting and advocating that we put forth our trust on a will so that our items can be dispersed within a quick time frame and doesn't have to sit and go through the fight of probate. But I was in for probate court one day and we were watching and we saw conservatorship in there for, a guardian ad litem for some of the children that were underage. I think it was just one child actually. And then we were talking about counting measures to ensure that the assets were being accounted for properly. So it was a lot of great learning in the process. Loved it so much, stayed in court, came back after the break and found out we were actually listening to the probate matter of a major case that's in Michigan by a lady that has been deemed dead, because we ended up hearing the hearing about whether she was to be deemed dead or alive. So they have deemed her dead by court and, standards relative to the hearing that went forth on that. But she had been noted as missing for some time. And it took me by surprise at the time. That lady's name is Dee Warner. So you may have heard of the case in various TV outlets and most notably Dateline itself. She was missing and it's now under the suspicion that her husband has something to do with her actual disappearance and, deemed demise. That is not something that has gone to court as of yet, I don't think. That is a criminal matter for which I have not followed, but I do know that the detective stated that he was a person of interest. And then he said he's upgraded to being the suspect. So he's no longer just a person of interest. They believe him to be the actual suspect for murdering Dee Warner. With that being said, we're back into some of the continuation hearings that were put off for this week. Therefore, if DV or emotions relative to missing mothers and children, you know, I get a little choked up when it comes to kids. And so if it becomes a little too much, go ahead and click off. If you feel like this is, you know, going to be too much, click off. I understand. I'm giving you forewarning now because I don't know how far and how depth we're going to get into with these particular hearings, but I do know the last time we were in court, they took me all the way by surprise. So I don't want you to be off put. Go check out the other videos. Make sure to share the video. There is a video called Free, talks about your ADT system. Go ahead and share that with your family and friends and ensure that anyone who's looking for a security system are able to take advantage of those free items while they last, okay? And for the rest of us, we'll go to court. All right, let's go on. We're going to get into court now. We're in Lenawee County. There's the flyer again. So let's get into Lenawee probate case. And we are in the matter of Dee Warner. All right. We always keep things turned up here. So do yourself a favor, turn down your volume or unplug. I know that there's been some mic issues. We've been kind of inconsistent with our sound. So I try to keep everything turned up so that we are still able to hear each other. So please protect your ears.
Nonetheless, we are back on the record with all of our parties, including this afternoon, Mr. Charles Bullock has joined us by Zoom. We're about to resume the testimony of Mr. Bach. We remain under oath.
Wait a minute.
Cross-examination.
Okay, hold on. I want to make sure that we're getting the beginning of today. I know that they had Zoom issues, but I don't know if it was for a different matter or if it was for this matter. Let me make sure. Yeah, so so that's true. All right, so this morning case did not get broadcasted. So that's why we're getting to the continuation of the hearing for this testimony. They were having issues with Zoom this morning, so we missed the first half, but we're now coming into the second half. So we are getting the first part of it that was broadcasted. The other part was
Warner, file 2151852CA. All right, I was actually able to get us back onto YouTube this afternoon. It wasn't working this morning. Nonetheless, we are back on the record with all of our parties, including this afternoon, Mr. Charles Bullock has joined us by Zoom. We're about to resume the testimony of Mr. Bach. We remain under oath. Cross-examination. Did you find the document you were looking for, Mr. Lee?
I did, Your Honor. I don't know if you want to finish with everybody and then I'll begin, or I can certainly prepare to go ahead.
It doesn't matter to me. Mr. McFarland, do you want to go?
I have no preference, whatever the court wants.
Well, let's have you go ahead and
Yes,
then
sure.
We'll go back to Mr. Lee.
How would you like me to address you today?
Zach.
Okay, Zach. I have a couple questions for you based upon some.
talking to the judge. He was like, how would you like me to address you today? What are you talking about? Your Honor. Wait, he's talking to the witness. Okay, so the witness is whoever he is.
Your earlier answers.
Sorry.
You said that Dale and your mom had arguments about
Oh, okay, so this is Zach.
DW Investments ownership,
That's
correct?
I mean, it wasn't so much as arguments about the ownership of it. It was just they would have an argument about anything going on with businesses, and it was, well, I'll just take DDW and you can deal with the rest.
Were we talking? Who's saying that?
That's my mom saying
Okay.
today.
You mentioned that when you left, one of the reasons was other sketchy things being done. Am I correct?
Yes.
What do you mean by that? What were the other sketchy things?
Well, I mean, he was taking a new loan out when we couldn't afford the loans we had.
He being Dale?
Dale. He borrowed an additional loan when we couldn't pay the loans we had currently. And then the excuse that I was given about why the loan was being taken out was to service debt that we already could barely support now. So to me, that wasn't accurate, and it was sketchy because I wasn't informed of it before it was happening, and all of a sudden it was just happening. The money had never, and when I was there, I had never seen it hit the bank account. So I don't know where the money actually was deposited to.
You said things, plural. Were there other things or just this one?
Well, and then the fact that he was bringing back Mr. Weisberg, based.
Okay, so if you guys remember, Dale and Weisberg are the defendants in this matter, and Dale is the husband and Weisberg was one of the employees. While Dee was still around, she fired Weisberg for whatever reason. I don't even know if that ever came up as to why. But consequently, like immediately after her disappearance, Dale brought Weisberg back. So that was a part of the issues that a lot of the family member had. The daughter, and now it sounds like the son as well, is expressing that became like contentious, and it was suspicious. It's like, why would you bring back someone who had ill intent towards your organization when the wife is gone? And his reasoning at the time was Dale would reply to them, according to their testimony, Dale would reply that he needed help figuring out the business because he wasn't the business person originally. He worked in the farm and Dee worked on the business side but so did the kids. They had a whole full staff of operational staff members. So consequently, that still doesn't pass the snuff test because you have staff members that are already doing the job. It's not like it was just you and your wife. But nevertheless, that's what he presented. As far as the loan concerned, sounds like when he's saying service the debt we already have, meaning to make payments, not to pay off. Some people will do a consolidation loan that will like do a big loan that will consolidate all debt to pay off all the debt. But it doesn't sound like that loan was meant for that. It was just to make certain payments to keep them afloat. And it's reasonable to say, well, how are we going to make this payment on this one loan if we're, already just using it to service debt versus to eliminate debt? And one of the allusions last time we saw was that they felt like Weisenberg helped Dale get rid of the wife, which is why he was brought. And I believe now they're trying to say that this supposed loan, since it never hit the business account, was really a loan against the business that he used for personal use and could have very well used to pay off whomever helped him get rid of Dee.
Based on everything that had happened with Mr. Weisberg previously with his employment.
Yeah.
That would be an additional sketchy
I believe you,
business.
thank you. I believe you had previously stated that you overheard discussions or arguments discussing Mr. Weisberg, right? Between your mother and Dale.
They had many discussions about Mr. Weisberg.
Okay, these are hearsay discussions, but the exception is just not to prove factual basis, and this is a probate matter. So as much as we're talking about criminal behaviors and potential alleged criminal behaviors, that would really be maybe differently argued in front of a criminal case, in the sense that if you're trying to prove that Dale did in fact kill his wife, these particular hearsay conversations would probably be objected to. But this is probate, and we're really determining. The first thing we had to determine is that her, as the owner of the businesses, is deceased, so that they can in fact go into as children who are heirs to her inheritance can go forth and start, dividing up the inheritance and getting it dispersed out. And I believe, I'm not sure what her will said because we didn't get into that at the time, but I believe that because some of her children were from a previous marriage or a previous union of sorts, that there is dispersion to the children separate and apart from just going straight to her husband.
Arguments? How would you describe an argument so I know what you mean by that?
Screaming at each other, very explicit language being used. Just them arguing. I guess I don't know how else to describe it.
Perfectly fine. Did you overhear any conversations or arguments regarding Mr. Weisberg's felony embezzlement conviction?
I was informed about the conviction.
Didn't hear that, correct?
I didn't hear about it from, I heard about it from
Okay, that's what I wanted.
yes. And then she actually had printed it, she had found it online, I think she Googled it, and she had found some article or something.
Was this while he was still employed or after his employment was terminated?
I believe it was after the employment was terminated.
You said you're surprised to see him back.
Yeah.
So why would you want, if you have an interest in the business succession, why would you want someone who has been felony convicted of embezzlement helping you run your business? If there's nothing nefarious going on, this is not your brother, your blood brother, or your close brother, or your brother-in-law. There's no family ties to this gentleman. So why are you forgiving his financial sins and entrusting him with the financial viability of your business? It doesn't make sense.
Have you already discussed all the reasons, or are there other reasons
Other reasons.
why you're surprised to see Mr. Weisberg back?
I'm still surprised to see why he would come back. I'm surprised why Dale would want to rehire somebody who was part of the reason they were honestly in the financial position they were in before.
Wow.
You indicated there was some type of lawsuit that Dale and your mother brought against Mark Weisberg. Was that, do you know if that was any eviction judgment to get Mr. Weisberg off the property?
Well, I believe it was both a lawsuit that Mr. Weisberg had brought against them. I think if I remember correctly, it was something about, he said he wasn't paid all of his wages.
Mhm.
I don't really know what ended up happening with it. I remember Mom saying that they won. And then I also know that they were going through some type of eviction that Doug Hartung was handling. And I believe Doug actually handled both of those cases.
So they said they won. Who is the they?
My mom and Dale won the case against Mark.
Okay, Dale said that to you and your mom? They both said that to you?
Just my mom.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I very rarely had many conversations with Dale.
Everybody does that. Well, his sister and him both say that. They don't really communicate with Dale frequently. Which is unfortunate because I believe the young lady is about 11, the daughter that Dee and Dale have in common, roughly 11 years old. She was about 9 years old when her mother went quote unquote missing. So they had a contentious relationship with Dale prior to the suspicion that he's the reason why the mom is missing. That's quite unfortunate.
I have nothing further, Your Honor, at this point in
But
time.
he was, I don't know if he was convicted, but there was allegations that he was committing assault against the mom during the marriage.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Your Honor.
But he's the attorney for Dale and Weisberg. I think he's the attorney for both of them.
Just to clarify a couple of the questions that Mr. McFarland asked you before I get back into my cross-examination. So what time period are we talking about with regard to the lawsuit that Mr. Weisberg filed against your mom and Dale for back wages?
The lawsuit or his
What kind of time
conversation
frame?
about the lawsuit?
Was this in 2016 when he left?
Yes,
Or as you said, he was fired, right?
yes.
And then Mr. Weisberg filed it against them. You said that your mom and Dale won, and then they evicted him out of rental property or something?
But, you know, I hope he's like tread softly with this particular attorney. One of the things you want to be mindful of, this is a probate matter, but like I said, there is lingering criminal matter that may come forth relatively soon. And he did this with the daughter, trying to like pin them down to a certain time, a certain frame of when this and that happened. And the issue I have with that is if the witness misspeaks or just goes along with his timeline or just is, loose about it, then when it comes down to trial, they can't change their story, right? And say, well, I'm not really sure. Then they'll have this particular information to go against them. I don't like the fact that he's asking him questions about the time frame, what happened in the legal matter. he really doesn't know. He's just going off a conversation he had with his mom, expressing, discontent with this ex-employee. Point blank period. What the details of that discontent is, he shouldn't be made to marry and boggle down.
Yes.
I wouldn't be so hard
Did you
pressed.
ever hear from Mr. Weisberg again after that?
I saw him one other time. He actually came to testify on behalf of my mom and Dale for one of the lawsuits, I believe, with Mr. Bader.
Okay, so this gentleman that had been working for your mom and Dale, who had been fired from EDW Investments and the other Warner companies because he's testified earlier was cooking the books, was now brought back to be a witness for them.
Those implications are not as much as it's not as strong as he's making it. He's making it seem like, oh, this is someone they obviously didn't have too much of a problem with because they brought him back to testify. If he's the one that has the information, they may have had to subpoena him to testify, force him to testify. Like, what does it matter?
In the John Deere case?
No, the Paul Bader case.
Paul Bader case. Well, that was the case with John Deere, right? Where John Deere was attempting to foreclose on all the equipment.
Sure.
And that's when Paul Bader came in and made the settlement. paid off the
Objection,
loans, and created
relevance.
buybacks.
Objection, relevance. All of this conjecture about what the other cases weren't about, when they were. To me, it's too particular for what this witness is here to testify to. He's testifying to that there was contention expressed by his mom relative to this particular individual. He is doing a good job getting him all tangled up in details and kind of showing some backtracking of the fact that maybe they had discontent, but they ended up having a, reconciliation of sorts and they're back together again, but not necessarily.
Yes.
Okay, and that those loans now are on, as you testified earlier, a land contract with Mr. Bader today.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, get to it, counselor. Now, remember, when you're doing cross-examinations, you actually don't have to get into the details as to why you're asking the question. You just need the answer. You get the answer out there, and then in your closing, you wrap up the bow and show why it was pertinent and where it fits into your narrative. Speed this up a little bit. Charles Bullock is on the
Testified earlier
Zoom.
that Mr. Weisberg left.
How fast I mean, go
That he
faster.
prepared tax returns. Did you mention?
Okay.
He prepared my tax return the same year.
Okay.
Well, failed to do so, but
Sure. You have copies of all of them. Here.
All right, this goes to why you need copies of your exhibits. You have all of these people to get copies to. They get their own copy. And the court gets a copy. And the judge gets a copy on top of giving it to the clerk. I like to give the clerk and the judge their own copy. I kill a lot of trees. Tree huggers, don't be mad. It's court. You gotta have copies. Sorry. Even in the digital age. Oh my goodness, let's get with it. So the question is, did Weisenberg prepare the taxes for whomever, the company or whatever? He's saying, yes, he did. He prepared it for the company and myself because he was supposed to.
Sorry for delaying, it's about a 20-page document.
I wonder if he's a CPA. I mean,
One of several, so.
I think before we get too far into it, I would object us to scope. I'm not sure what the tax return.
Yeah. So she's objecting to scope. So everyone else speaks faster than he, and they sound jumbled, but he sounds so slow. Let's hear what he has to say to that objection.
I guess before we get too far into it, I would object us to scope. I'm not sure what the tax return.
Attempting to impeach the witness.
What about the
What do you
witness?
intend to produce for purposes of impeachment?
The tax
Oh,
returns from 2015.
Okay, so he wants to impeach the witness, is what he's saying. And I guess because preparation of the taxes. But you sign your own taxes even when someone else prepares them. So let me
Okay,
see.
what do you intend to produce for purposes of impeachment?
The tax returns from 2015, 16, and 17 that were all done by Doran Mayhew at Marcos.
I can't hear you.
The tax returns for DDW Investments LLC that were all prepared by Doran Mayhew.
By Doran, who?
Doran Mayhew.
Thank you.
Yes.
And this is contrary to the witness's testimony on which point?
That Mr. Weisberg produced the tax returns and was supposedly cooking the books.
The compound production. I don't know if you're gonna get both sides of that coin.
The cover sheet or all the documents?
I just want to show them to him so that he can admit that he made a mistake.
Okay, so the other counselors are trying to keep out of the record, the financials, all of the numbers, which makes sense unless, they need to just file it under seal, but they're just trying to protect it from our prying eyes as the public. And he wants to use the documentation to impeach the witness for making the statement that his client is the one who prepared the document, the taxes. Interesting. Now, I know there are more than one
These are all
business.
documents that have already been produced in this case.
Oh, okay.
There's no surprise.
What?
You plan to admit
I
this?
don't plan to admit that. I plan to show it to him for the purposes of impeachment.
That's interesting. If you're trying to impeach him with evidence, you have to admit the evidence on the record. Like, I don't understand how you don't admit the evidence.
It shows Doran Mayhew didn't do all.
I'm sorry.
There's somebody else that did him every year. Aaron Partridge, who testified to.
Okay. Aaron Partridge.
It goes lucky.
All right, is this intended to be information that is presented for the record, or do we need a sidebar? Do you want to?
I want to just approach the witness and ask him who produced these tax returns. That's all I want to ask.
I understand.
On record with evidentiary record, like you didn't answer that part. He gets such an attitude.
Clarify.
He's like a petulant child. He cries about the littlest things. And he irritated me in the beginning before I even knew like a lot of what the case was about. And he's like, it's just the simplest. You want to argue about the simplest thing. Well, they're attorneys. It's their job. It's their job to nitpick.
Maybe you could just ask him to clarify.
I did. I asked him if he could be mistaken. He said no.
That's not clarifying. Are you mistaken?
16 now, I just took a look at 15.
I like him. He's like, I'm going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read the whole thing.
I don't think that they're intending for us to
Yeah.
record this conversation,
No.
You
counselors.
don't want it on the record, okay.
So why wasn't this circulated, Mr. Lee, during lunch hour or in the few minutes of delay that we had prior to resuming the record?
Because during the lunch hour, I looked through the file and found them. These are all records that have been previously produced. It's just,
What a bunch of malarkey. During lunch hour, I went through the records and found them. How many copies does he have? Maybe he has multiple copies of them, then I'm not buying.
Your Honor, pursuant to the court rules and the rules of evidence, I can use anything to impeach a witness. And I just want to ask him
So,
if he was wrong. That's all. If he could be mistaken. He said no.
I understand what you're trying to do, Mr. Lee, but whether or not your documents are proper or verified or appropriate for impeachment is the issue.
They're all
Because I'm sure you
certified.
can understand your fellow brothers and sisters attorneys need to understand whether or not the documents you're trying to use for impeachment purposes are actually valid documents. So
Okay.
they would need to have been produced so that the other attorneys can look at them ahead of time to avoid this very circumstance.
They were produced in other matters in this case. Yes, they've been produced for purposes of not only subpoenas, but also pursuant to, I believe, the motion for civil contempt as well, among other things. So, I mean, I'm happy to just ask him a couple of questions. I don't need him to look at these documents necessarily.
Are there any objections to the use of, further objections to the use of these documents for purposes of impeachment?
I don't have any objection.
Anyone else?
Don't
No.
pay additional.
Very good. If you'd like to approach the witness, Mr. Lee, you may proceed.
Now, Mr. Bach, you
Oh,
mentioned earlier.
so we are taking the
that there
documents you don't
was
need.
another-
You see that fast and loose thing he just pulled? He just said, I don't have to use these documents. It's okay. I can just ask him a couple questions. And he takes the documents, he's getting ready to go walk up to the witness stand and take the documents and use them.
Number of CPAs that were involved, right?
Yes,
Okay. Was Doran Mayhew one of them?
you know, the accounting firm that created the tax returns that prior to 2015.
Okay. And I've just handed you tax returns for the years 2015, 16, and 17.
Are they filed?
It looks as though 2015 was prepared by Doran Mayhew and the 16 and 17 were prepared by a gentleman, another gentleman. Who would that have been?
Brian Noxinger.
Brian Madison. Okay. So Mark Weisberg did not produce the tax returns for those.
He did. He
Prepare.
he also prepared my personal tax returns
Okay.
for the year 2012 and 2013. And I also think he even prepared the tax returns for my sister,
That may be, but he didn't produce them for DDW investments, right?
but he did for 2013 and 14.
But at the time that he left, you said he was fired because he was cooking the books. And you said that he prepared the tax.
So is this attorney's only thought process that the only way they can have issue with his tax preparation is if it is the same year he's fired, 2016? According to the witness, he's saying it was done in 2013, 2014, which the taxation that he's pulled out is 2015, 16, 17, and 18.
Tax returns, he was not. Is that true?
He was. Doran and Mayhew is a tax firm
I love this witness. Don't let him change your
that
testimony.
went ahead and corrected all of
Right.
that bookkeeping.
Keep your testimony there. You were there. He wasn't.
Tax returns, he was not. Is that true?
He was. Doran and Mayhew is a tax firm that went ahead and corrected all of that bookkeeping.
Who submitted them to the IRS? Doran Mayhew, correct?
I don't know.
Okay. Mr.
So now he wants to, he said that they had to have him corrected. He wants to just ignore that and turn around and say, well, who gave them to the IRS? I guess the ones who corrected the books, who corrected the numbers.
Bach, I'll move on. You said earlier this morning that at the time that you left DDW Investments in June of 2020, 2021, after your mother had disappeared, and you believe there were issues that there was no payroll taxes owed to the IRS. Did you say that earlier today?
I said that I did not believe there was payroll taxes owed for Warwick Farms,
Okay.
not for DDW. DDW did owe payroll taxes.
And how much did DDW owe for payroll
I
taxes?
don't know the exact number.
But if you don't know, don't say. Don't,
Warwick Farms LLC have owed payroll taxes?
don't
Very well
get.
could have, yes.
You just don't know that?
I just don't know.
And if documents from the IRS showing that there were levies were shown to you, you wouldn't dispute that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess, what is the point? What are we getting into
Now-
with that?
This morning, we talked a little bit about the operating agreement, and you testified.
Well, okay, I guess I can surmise what his point is. He's trying to mitigate damage in that regard. So once again, this is probate matter, even though the elements are salacious. So a part of probate is finding out how much is to be inherited. What is the valuation of items? So you go through this process of getting personal items appraised, real property appraised. And because this is a business, a part of appraised value for the business also has to do with the income, the liquid funds, and then what valuation of the real property or, personal property of the business is, the equipment and so forth. Then you have to say, well, how much of that is theirs in ownership versus are they still leasing it? Is it somebody else's property? And then I believe the reason why he's going into these employee taxes, payroll taxes, is that because you have an income of $1 million, but if you have payroll taxes of $100,000, then you really only have $900,000 in income. So that's probably what he's trying to mitigate, is relative to how much ownership and financial responsibility is awarded to this particular file.
That, as far as you knew,
He just irritates me.
your mother was the sole owner of DDW Investments. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. Do you know when DDW Investments was created?
I do not.
Was it created before you went to work there?
I don't know.
Did you utilize the operating agreement within the course of your work to do the accounting and pay the bills?
Yes,
And there are two operating agreements that we have.
I was only aware of one.
Okay, I'm going to show you both of them. I want you to tell me which one you believe is the one that only affects your mom. Approach, Judge.
You may.
One. Here's two.
We can squeeze him back up, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and you recognize those documents?
I recognize one of them.
Okay, so let's take document number one, the one that I handed you first. Okay, the one that says operating agreement for DDW Investments. Turn to the very last page. Page 11. See that?
I do.
Okay. You see the signatures listed there?
I do.
Okay. One of which is your mom. She signed Deanne Bach. See that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was as of May 4th, 2006, according to this document, right? Sure. Okay. Are you familiar at all with a gentleman named Walter Hamilton?
I've never known.
Okay. Now, have you ever seen this document before I presented it to you today?
I've seen it on email chains that I've gotten from the other attorneys.
Okay. But before that, you never saw that document?
No.
Okay. Now, look at document number two. By the way, you're familiar with your mother's signature, right?
I am.
Would she ever sign anything, Deanne Bach?
Judge, I want to object. Mr. Bach is not a handwriting expert. We've already heard from one.
Not in this case, we haven't. And I'm curious, he's familiar with his mother's signature. I just asked the question.
Presumably, she would have signed her name Deanne Bach when that was her name.
He can testify as a lay witness as to his observations. The objections are, you're welcome to cross it.
Thank you. Would she ever sign her name Deanne Bach?
When she was Deanne Bach.
Okay. And in 2006, she was still Deanne Bach?
I have no idea what that meant.
Okay. That document number one is also signed by Dee Warner, correct?
So that must be her maiden name or her name prior to marrying Dale, whatever BMI is. I don't know what the last name is that they're.
This document?
Document number one.
But I liked his answer. When that was her name, she would sign it.
And then document number two, are you familiar with that document?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that document?
Operating agreement of DVW Investments.
Okay. Do you know what date this was signed?
I have no idea.
You know why it's not notarized?
I don't think it needs to be notarized.
Is that your mother's signature on the bottom of the page, on the back?
Yes,
Did you sign it on her behalf?
I've never signed this. This is created long before I was. This is from 2006, it looks like.
Well, it's not dated, but you agree with
The
me?
date of this at the top says 2006.
Right, but it's not filled in as to a specific.
No.
Your Honor, without objection, I'd like these to be as defense. Dee Warner exhibits 1 and 2.
I've not used them for today's hearing.
What foundation are we submitting both?
Which is the one that you wish is, that you call number one, which is one you call number two?
We have,
Yeah.
the petitioner's exhibit that was published to the bench. Did you wish to exert any additional objections to this, Mr. Lee?
Not at this time, no, I would not object to it.
All right, so I'm gonna receive this, but I'm going to, we'll call it, A1, and then if your exhibit comes in, we'll just simply refer to yours as one.
All right, my objection is these are not original agreements. These are obviously copied. I don't know whether they were blank, whether signatures have been added afterwards. I want to take a look at original agreement, and these are not originals that were presented to the witness, Your Honor. So that's my objection.
Your Honor, with all due respect to the business records rule, it surrounds the hearsay. These are documents that are within the ordinary course of business. Copies are perfectly permitted.
I believe for the business rule to apply, it has to be, the witness would have to be someone who created it. And can testify that it was created in the normal course of business and kept in the normal course of business.
They've already been produced, again, to all of the parties in this case. As Mr. Practice testified.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, so he keeps talking about things that have been produced to the parties in the case. That's a discovery process where you produce things to the parties. So what? When you're in court, you have rules of evidence where you're having hearing, and just because you produce it, you're supposed to produce it to the other side, especially if you plan on calling it. But if you have not done anything to legitimize its existence and accuracy and prevalence, then it could be a draft copy. It could be in one. Oh Lord, it sounds like the last page is a hanging page. If you create legal documents that require signatures, agreements, and contracts and so forth, do not have a orphan page. And an orphan page would be like the signatures all by themselves, because they can take that and attach it to any other documents. I've had someone try to do that to me. I was like, absolutely not. No. Don't agree to any parts of this. As a matter of fact, we will not be entering into any type of contract with you, because I feel like you are trying to pay fast and loose. You're switching things. And one of the reasons why I thought they were doing something wrong is they had a signature. There was nothing like my partner's signature. So I knew for a fact that that wasn't their signature. So someone else had signed on their behalf, faulty signature. But whenever you're creating legal documents, do me a favor. I beg of you, do not have an orphan page, because it is not, it's just not secure. It's just not secure. You're not quite sure that it's a part of this particular agreement or not. They have some agreement here that doesn't even have a date on it. It doesn't have an effective date, because one of the first paragraph says is on this day, and we hereby agree. So if you're agreeing to something on that date, you need to have a date there. So everything from that date forward, you are actually in agreement to those particular terms. That date is blank, and then there's no date on the signature. So how do we even know if this is an enforceable document? Ridiculous. Oh, but I do appreciate the attorney where she's like, look, that only applies when you have the authors of the documents validating the documents. So they're actually speaking about evidentiary objections and how you get hearsay business records over the hearsay hurdle. And so that's what they're talking about here.
Anyone else like to weigh in on this?
I guess I'm also adding that, we have the document that's typed, we have signed, we have printed additions to these, we have things that are crossed off in these. I'm looking at the one that's 2006.
It's not, it might be a draft. It might be a draft with a hanging page attached to it. From any other document, truthfully and honestly, but when you scratch out something in the agreement, both parties have to initial. So if you change the term or you change a word or a letter or a sentence within the document by hand, both parties need to initial by hand. So if you're going to do that, it's fine, because you say, no, this is not the agreed upon. Make sure both parties initial there. Otherwise, no one knows who made that X.
So I don't know if that is an original created. We also have crossings off on the second document, on page 11. I understand it appears to be social security number, but.
Well, for purposes of the exception to the hearsay rule under records of regularly conducted activity, it does indicate that a memorandum, report, record, or data compilation in any form of acts, transactions, occurrences, events, conditions, opinions, or diagnosis made at or near the time by or from information transmitted by a person with knowledge, if kept in the course of a regularly conducted business activity. So Mr. Bach has testified he's not, in fact, at all a person with knowledge. I don't have anything to indicate to me that this is something that is simply a data compilation, record, or report of a regularly conducted business activity.
So she's about to sustain the objection. The difference, so regularly supported business activity would be something like payroll, how you're handling your clients, what are you doing to secure different accounts, and how you are fulfilling those account orders or whatever have you. So he might have done away with maybe a contract buying between the company and a client. To say that that is a part of normal business activity because it's usually the standardized agreement that the company is using, that the client signs without issue and just, initials at pertinent places. However, this is an operational agreement, and I'm not sure who the other party is. This particular witness doesn't even know the party listed, so
For those reasons, I can.
How can he attest to the fact of its validity if he doesn't know this particular document and doesn't have a reasonable expectation to know this particular document?
So for those reasons, I cannot allow it in under the exception to the hearsay rule of the business record. Is there anything else you'd like to offer in support of your motion?
So that young lady's objection did very well for
Along
the,
with the-
it got it booted.
Gotcha. Thanks. I mean, I would move for their admission, but subject to by
Hold it.
claiming that they are hearsay.
Hold it for
Mr.
appeal.
Garland has suggested that they're not kept in the ordinary course of business, but Mr. Bach just testified that he referred to it every day. So
That I didn't hear that.
I understand the court's ruling.
That might have been earlier morning testimony.
Mr. Bach, at some point in time, I believe you testified earlier that you were authorized to sign your mother's name to things. Is that true?
Yes,
In fact,
Uh-oh.
PPP loans, you prepared one and she prepared one. Did you ever sign her name to that?
I did not.
It's electronic, isn't it?
Did you understand that Dale and Dee would ever be in a position to sign each other's names to various documents?
Yeah, that's a problem.
Not that I'm aware of.
That's a problem, not because it's a problem to do so. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not going to argue that right now, but it is a problem because one of the things that they said Dale did was take out a loan after she supposedly was missing, and or at least he attempted to, and that's what started this whole humbug because when in doing so, they felt like her power of attorney signature was false. It was a fake. And there was a fraudulent activity. And so that sparked a whole investigation. And then it's like realizing she's been missing. And on top of that, he's trying to take out this loan. So, but this presents a problem because if the son is saying he had the right to sign his mother's name in her absence, then it shows a pattern that she gave other people permission to sign on her behalf. I never do that. I never do that. And I'll look at somebody sign, I'm like, just sign my signature and sign that. I do not allow people to sign my signature because I want to read the document, know what I'm signing, right? But you may want to choose not to do that because this may cause them a problem later. We'll see.
I actually argued the opposite of that,
Which would be what?
that my mom would never want Dale to sign her name.
But you're okay.
And why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
Well, the same reason that she's not here is she would despise him.
She despised him, so that would be the reason why. within
Oh.
the course of the
So if
business-
she was to go ahead and
Be
allow him to
careful.
be able to start signing her name on things, God only knows what he would have done.
Motion to strike. Motion to strike that is, he has got to stop it. So I've said this before, if you've seen it, maybe you've heard it, but bottom line is, you got to keep your emotions in check. The daughter got on, and I was so afraid that she was just gonna like tell all the reasons why she hates this man, right? But she did a good job at keeping that contained. He is getting a little slippery here. Obviously, his mom loved this. Let's be real. Obviously, his mom loved Dale at some point because she married him. Obviously, she loved him at some point because she had a child with him. So now that we have the suspicion that he is the reason why she's missing and legally deemed dead, I would remember what it was before and not harbor so heavy on how much you despise him, because what this attorney can do now is he can start to use that as commentary and a part of his closing argument that the only reason why they're bringing this matter up is because they hate Dale so much and they have venom towards him versus the facts of the case being valid. So be careful with that. And the pattern of your mom allowing you to sign your name just shows that other people could sign her name on her behalf. Now, things that are notarized, obviously that's not going to be something that you can say is true, like power of attorney. Obviously, she's not going to allow someone to sign a power of attorney that needs to be a notarized document because the notary is going to say, no, you're not the person who signed it. I can't validate this document. So just let it go and don't get slippery with him. And maybe he could have said something like, I don't think my mother trusted his business sense, as he was truly never really a part of the business, because that's what they contended earlier. But the way he's making these statements gives so much venom to it. It just makes me concerned.
You're not aware of any document that was entered into between the two of them, such as a document maybe from More Egg Farms LLC that would have allowed each of them to sign each other's names?
No.
I never heard of that. You get a document for permission to sign my name. I mean, we do that in law. We sign the other attorney's name, but I don't know about signing a document that says you have permission if you're in the same law firm, or you can send an email and say, do I have permission to sign this document? Yes, go ahead and file and file this joint stipulation. That happens a lot, but you get consent prior to. It's not just done at any whim. It's on one particular document at a time, not all documents. That's if you're on the opposite team, like the opposing counsels. If you're the same law firm,
Yeah, virtually.
no
Mr. Beck,
worries.
I'm showing you a document. Can you identify it, please, for the court?
What's it say? What's the name of this document? Does it have a title or not? Speak.
Does that purport to be your mother's signature at the bottom of the page?
It appears to be your name.
Okay. And what is that?
It's like an amendment to an operating agreement.
Okay. And that document allows for either party to sign each other's names. You agree?
I would object that that mischaracterizes the document.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I guess. Is this like an agreement you get with the county? And it's like, this person can sign or this person can sign. And it's not necessarily for each other. It's for the company. Like both people can sign on behalf of the company. What are we
It does
talking
not
about?
say that either party can sign each other's name. It just says either party can act on behalf of the entity.
Right. Thank you. Sustain that objection. What are you talking about? Oh, it's not one and the same. That's not the same thing at all. Anybody who does business, especially if you get like a county contract, you might get a master agreement with the county, right? And this is like an agreement that says you get to be one of their vendors. Then you get a service agreement. Say you, they want you to do the construction work, right? You'll get a construction agreement to do this particular site. You get approval for that. And you have a partner or even maybe a manager and you're the CEO. And you're like, look, this other person is also able to operate on behalf of the business. This other person can sign work orders. This other person can sign payrolls. This other person can sign addendums and contracts, and you can communicate with this person. This is my project manager. This is my manager. Whatever the case. So you don't have to deal with the CEO every single time. This is the person that's being assigned to the contract. So they have full power to represent on behalf of the entity. That is not the same as my husband can sign my documents on my behalf, and I, as his wife, can sign his documents on his behalf. That's not the same kind of statement at all. That's such a huge mischaracterization. What a
Is that what the document says?
Did she? I want a ruling on the objection. Look at Charles Bullock's. Look at his face. You gotta be kidding me. The rest of the attorneys do not get along with this defense attorney. And, there's multiple reasons why, but he irks the mess out of me. And this is the kind of stuff that he gets under my skin about. He plays these games.
Either party society.
From what I've witnessed in this case, I don't know the man. This is just my opinion based on what I'm watching.
You agree?
I would object that that mischaracterizes the document. It does not say that either party can sign each other's name. It just says either party can act on behalf of the entity.
Charles is like, for real? I don't know if
Is
she
that what the document says?
ruled on the objection or not.
That either party can act on behalf of the LLC.
I would ask that this be marked as well. as
Job witness.
Exhibit number 2 or 3, I guess 1 since we.
Like, I'm not falling
It's a
for
business
your
record, and that's why it was
characterization.
Exhibited, I have a brief for you, we're here, Your Honor.
I will ask that it be admitted as a business record, yes.
Okay.
All right, if you're gonna ask me to look at it as an exception to the hearsay rule, if you could please lay the foundation so that this is a person with knowledge of this particular document, and he can verify this document and that it's used in the regular course of business. Lay the foundation that allows me to properly evaluate whether or not to allow it in as an exception, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Back, do you recognize this document at all?
I've never seen this document.
That answers the question. Thank you.
Okay. So he's not getting the document in, but he could very well get the document in by, well, I don't know what Zach
Now,
does.
Mr. Back, you've testified.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Bach, I think is his last name. I think what he did was the payroll stuff. And then I guess maybe he was operations manager. So maybe that's why he's asking him all these other questions. But if they had an operations manager or someone who deal with contract procurement or acquisitions, I think that personnel would be more attuned to being able to validate what these documents are, because what he's bringing up to him are contract agreements that the board of directors would vote on, give resolution for the CEO to sign and enter agreement a part of. And, that the CEO being Dee, who's now dead, the operations manager or the procurement manager should be more in line with knowing if these are valid documents or what they mean and so forth, versus him if he is the HR person. And the problem is we didn't hear earlier's testimony because they didn't get on Zoom. So we're not quite sure, well, at least I'm not quite sure what he did or what he purports to have done for the business.
Pretty eloquently that you were the accounting guy in the office, right?
Accounting, he was the accounting guy.
I helped with the
So he did bookkeeping.
accounting.
Okay.
We had an accounting firm that did the actual accounting.
Really?
Good.
And what accounting firm would that be?
He did bookkeeping.
Gross Pucky, Rule and Roof.
Rural and Rural. Okay. And when were they hired to be the accountants?
I honestly couldn't tell you. An exact year.
You didn't have a retention letter or anything from them allowing them to do the accounting work?
There was a retention letter and everything like that, yes.
So remember, there was a time frame that he said 2013, 2014. Business records, you don't have to keep them past 7 years. We're in 2023. That's 10 years ago. So, does he have those documents? I don't know. But when you do start a litigation, one of the things that happens is that all parties and all interested persons are given the notice to not destroy records, even if it is going to pass the 70-year stretch, you have to keep those records because it's an open litigation. So I don't know when this went on
I'm not
notice,
familiar with that.
but just,
I know I've seen it. I just don't know when it started.
Okay. So you testified earlier this morning, and I thought fairly well, actually. And you said,
actually, get back into comments like that. How rude is that? You testified really well, actually. Were you expecting him not to? Do you think he's incapable of
testified
communication?
earlier this morning, and I thought fairly well, actually.
Rude,
And you said,
rude.
I was responsible for doing the accounting work in the office, and that
Oh,
Stephanie
this is so
Vocal
funny.
would assist. I did it with my mom, Dee Warner, and that
Mhm,
we would send out the bills, make the
Mhm.
payroll, tax payments, pay the creditors, pay for maintenance and all the bills that needed to be paid. Is that true?
mhm, mhm,
Yes,
Okay.
mhm, mhm.
And you weren't really involved in sending out the invoices, right? That was done by somebody else?
sending out what invoices?
The invoices to DDW Investments. So when a client would retain your firm,
Yes,
you would transport the goods. You testified earlier, you'd then send them a bill, right?
yes.
Because almost nobody up front paid cash up front, right?
I don't think anybody pays cash up front.
Okay. And you testified, all these people on this exhibit that Mr. Polderman showed you, were regular customers, right?
Yes,
And they were regular customers that some came and went, but they all were kept in the file in the office, right? They all had profiles, whether they were today or 6 months ago. Still maintain the file, right?
yes.
And then when Miss Berger asked you before lunch about who were your good clients, you said that there were a few, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they were so good that you would send baskets to them at Christmas time, right?
I wouldn't, my mom would,
Okay.
but the company would send them my basket, yes.
Who were those good clients?
Well, Midwest Biowag, which has since gone out of business, Laidlaw, ADM. I mean, there's several.
Okay. Well, we know that Laidlaw is involved in another capacity in this case, right?
You're telling me this, yes.
Okay. We know that Laidlaw purchased some things from DDW Transportation. You testified that under the direct, that you learned about that, right?
Yes.
What is your point?
Any other good clients that would be highlights on the client list? No.
Not that I can
Okay.
this time.
So you were the accounting guru and you said that you retained,
He is so annoying. He is so annoying. The passive aggressiveness is so annoying. At this point, I would be like, wait a minute, Your Honor. The accounting guru, come on now. He sounds like he was the bookkeeper. So he wasn't the CPA, so he didn't have a license in accounting. He already said that because they hired a firm to do that. But he wasn't doing it under a license. So what would make him a guru? Why is he being demeaning like this? It's rude. So rude. I guess because he's doing cross-examination, so they're already on a hostile playing field. They're not, on the same side. But doesn't mean he needs to be rude. He can still be respectful. He hasn't, the witness hasn't gotten snarky with you, so there's really not a need for you to be snarky with the
so you
witness.
were the accounting guru and you said that you retained a firm in Grosse Pointe, Michigan to do the accounting work, right?
Grosse Pointe, Michigan? No, I have no idea. It's in Grosse Pointe,
I'm
Michigan.
sorry, then I stand corrected. Who did you say that you hired as your accountant?
Grosse Pucky.
Grosse Pucky, okay. And where is Grosse Pucky?
Right here in Adrian.
Okay. And what were they responsible for?
They came in monthly and helped clean up any clerical errors or anything that was wrong.
And how long were they retained by DDW Investments to do the work?
Like I said, I do not know.
Were they there the entire time you were there?
Yes. Except for the first year.
Okay. So they were there from at least 2017 through 2021 when you left?
Well, you just showed me tax returns that I believe went back to 2015.
Okay. So are you talking about both time periods where you worked there? Gross Pucky was involved?
No, Gross Bucky was only involved after Mark Weisberg was gone.
Okay. And who retained Gross Pucky to do the accounting work?
Who called them first?
Who retained them?
The
I have
firm.
no idea.
Okay. Did you retain them?
I
That's
didn't.
the answer, Your Honor. Said no idea, which would be him.
Exactly,
Did
move
you work with
on.
them?
I worked with them.
Okay. Tell me how it worked. Did they come out to the farm and sit in the office and go through all the documents to do an audit? Or did you take everything to them, to their office?
They would come to the office.
And who specifically at Gross Pucky would do it?
Brian Knapsinger.
Okay. Do you know whether or not Brian Knapsinger had a relationship with Russell Dempsey?
I have no idea.
Did you ever meet with Russell Dempsey?
I met with him once.
When?
I couldn't tell you exactly when.
Okay. Was it prior to his appointment as conservator?
No,
Was it after?
yes,
Okay. Where did you meet with him?
his office.
Did Russell Dempsey ask you to produce any documents?
Asked me to produce anything.
What, if anything, came of that conversation?
He asked if I could explain to him kind of a little bit about the businesses, what they were, what they did.
Privileged communication. That's not- Guess not. It would
Did
have
he
been
explain anything else?
objective.
Not that I can recall.
How slow are we going? Are we up?
Mr. Bach, did you keep any records
I wonder why.
of any of DDW investments outside of the farm? Do you have a computer? Did you have anything that would maintain records outside of
Yes,
the office? Okay. Where did you maintain those records?
well, I did a lot of the email corresponding with the business stuff, so a lot of vendors, banks, whomever it was, emailed me.
Did you print off DDW investments materials and take it out of the office?
I had a flash drive with all the company backups on it.
It's boring me. Let's go faster.
I might have asked you this earlier. I apologize if I did. How often was Dale Warner in the office when you were working there?
He would typically come in and out throughout the day.
Did he ever get involved in reviewing any of the financial records or any of the documents related to DDW investments?
He had access to them on his computer on his desk. He would come over and look at everything that was on my desk. He'd look at anything on my mom's desk. They were very old school, so pretty much everything that was in the computer was also printed out, so there's paper everywhere.
Did you ever have family meetings between Dale and Dee and you and anybody else in the office concerning the running and the management of DDW investments?
They didn't have meetings.
Business.
There would be days when we'd be sitting in the office and we'd be conversing about it.
Essentially, your mom ran the companies, right?
Yes,
That's a meeting.
What documents did your mother have access to while she was running the companies? Everything?
everybody had access to everything.
Everybody had access to it. So everybody had access to the QuickBooks downloads as well?
Yes,
Okay. Did you have access to all the bank accounts?
yes.
What bank accounts were you a signer?
At one point, I was a signer on all the bank accounts.
Hmm.
And that was in your capacity as the accounting guru of the firm?
Oh, I think they're
No,
gonna
that was the capacity as my mom's son.
Okay. So she really trusted
housing
you, right?
issue.
She would tell you just about everything, right?
They're not gonna object to scope. I don't know how any of this has to do with any of the 5 violations that Mr. Polderman has
I
asked
have
for
nothing
approval on.
Okay, any redirect?
Oh,
Anyone have any other cross-examination about what we've heard today?
I have nothing further on, thank you.
No, Your Honor.
I do.
I like him. Come clean it up.
Ask for it one more time.
What are we looking at though? How old is?
Do you know if your mom paid for these Christmas baskets to good clients out of her own money or corporate money, if you know?
I doubt it was personal money, but I honestly have no idea.
Sometimes your mom would make,
we had a company credit card, so both of them used it for everything.
mother also did buy things just cash, right? So you kind of old fashioned that way sometimes.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, nothing.
I don't understand the relevance of that, but
Very nice.
okay.
You return your seats. Your next witness, Mr. Fuller.
Really?
Your Honor, I do not have any additional witnesses and I'm ready to
Okay.
make my closing argument.
Right, Mr. Lee, witnesses?
I do have witness, Judge. If he's here, I would call Todd Eric. He's supposed to be here at 2:00, so just see if he's available. Your Honor, in the meantime,
Is he your only witness?
yes, I had originally planned to call Jim Duzma, the attorney. He's unavailable today, but he submitted some affidavits. I presented it to the other side if I might present it to the court.
I object to your saying, Your Honor.
Yeah, I would
Objection.
make the same objection. It's out of court statement. I mean, affidavits are a classic example of hearsay. We're not here to cross-examine Mr. Duzma. Mr. Duzma is not here to be cross-examined. About
Right.
out-of-court statements.
Right.
It's a statement under oath, Judge.
Doesn't
Is that
matter.
an exception?
I believe a statement under oath is an exception.
No.
It's purported to be possible testimony if he was called as a witness to testify.
No.
Even if it is an exception or exemption, I believe it violates the confrontation clause.
No exception.
Merely
Okay, so they're talking about having an affidavit entered into as a record, as a statement by an attorney. Problem is, as they did their objections to, is they don't get to cross-examine that attorney. So the statement speaks for itself and then it's open for interpretation based upon whoever's reading it. Instead of being able to question the witness and ask them about the affidavit. When we submit affidavits or declarations, it's usually in regards to a motion, right? In regards to a document that we're filing with the court. But when you have a trial and you want certain facts to come in, you bring the witness in to testify to those facts, not just their affidavit or
Statement is under
declaration. And all the statements are under oath, because you sign it saying, penalty of
I
perjury.
understand, but that
So what?
is effectively hearsay. Is there a reason that I would be able to look at that as an exception to the hearsay rule?
I would think the court would want to take judicial notice of the fact that the affidavit written by Mr. Duzma and executed today,
Why is he not here?
talks about his relationship with the Warners and what he did as their attorney.
Your Honor, I would say a notary basically verifies his signature. They don't verify that the content is under oath. They don't verify the veracity of the content. All they do, and I've been a notary, is we just take a look at the ID and we say, you are who you purport to be.
Right.
Whatever in the statement, they can't verify that.
Yeah, so it
In
isn't,
addition, I believe any prior consistent or inconsistent statements would have to be predicated on the witness now being unavailable. And unavailability does not mean can't be in court because they have another obligation.
right. And it could be, the witness that could be deceased, right? So you might want to have judicial notice of a declaration or affidavit that's under oath because that particular witness is no longer living. However, even that gets thrown out as hearsay. And a lot of times that doesn't pass evidentiary objection. So I'm not sure where he's going with this. It could be probate as the issue, that maybe there's a looser thought process that he has relative to the evidence rules, but I don't see why he would think this would fly. Like, why would the attorney be there? And they have Zoom. So, well, I guess the attorney can't be there because maybe they're in court with another case. Maybe that's what they're trying to say.
Your Honor, he's an attorney. He told me he had to be in trial today. And
Okay.
I asked him if he would prepare an affidavit to that effect. He prepared an affidavit. In fact, two affidavits, one
I don't know.
in which included the articles of incorporation of DDW Transportation.
I would feel like you would work this out beforehand, have the judge have him be one of the first witnesses, and allow him to come in via Zoom under under the reasoning that, he has to be in trial. But getting ready for trial and prepping for trial and being in trial is a lot of work. It is a lot of mental work. So I don't know.
Another sworn affidavit,
But
which discusses
still
his
hearsay.
relationship with the Warners and
Yeah.
specifically says
Doesn't matter.
how the funds were handled from the sale.
Then you should have had him here. He should have got here. Should have been trial.
Mr. Weeb, I
In court.
can't see anything in the exceptions under the declarant unavailable that would allow it. If you want to have a look at the court rule and see if there's something you'd like me to evaluate to allow me to look at your statement, I'd be happy to look at that, but at this point in time, I can't see an exception that would apply.
Mm-hmm.
Your Honor, the court would like me to take a minute to do that. I would. If not, I could call Mr. Derrick and I can submit this later if the court would like. I mean,
Is Mr. Nyrick available?
I believe he is.
Is he on your phone?
I believe he was supposed to be here too, and I think he was waiting in the parking lot because I told him he couldn't come in. Hear the testimony, his questions.
I'm ready to listen to his testimony if he's available.
I'm gonna just walk outside.
Okay, so we're gonna let him do that. Find his witness and see if we can. Gosh, I wish their mics are not good there. I wish their mics were good. I don't think they're saying. Judge Middleton's mic was so hot, we were getting all the juiciness at the table, but not, they might have the mics turned off too. I can hear it. I don't know what they're saying. Okay,
Hear
so
from today?
let's see.
Will anyone else have witnesses that we would need to hear from today?
No.
She's trying to keep the case moving. I think, we're not gonna get to it now. Let's see what he says is the final determination of his witness.
It does not appear that the other attorneys have any other witnesses, just so you're aware.
So what do you want to do? Is he here? He must be here. All right, so I tell you what, we'll just let court, we'll come back.
Appear that the other attorneys have any other witnesses.
Okay, we got feedback on, on the judge. We'll let court come back and we'll come back and see what this witness has to say. Boy, oh boy, this case does not disappoint. All right, we got a lot of salacious things happening. But just want to remind those who may have not, or make sure you guys are aware, for those who haven't seen me talk about this before, get a trust. In your trust are all things of assets that have value. That's your home, your cars, your furs, your jewelry, your businesses. These businesses are having to disseminate and probably dissolve. I'm not sure what they're going to do for valuation purposes, but the heirs want their money. They want their inheritance, which is they're entitled to do. And so they're going to go through the probate process, however long this is going to take. Probate can be about 2 years. There are some that are longer. I think Princess was 9 years, and I know the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, it took 5 years to even get to the point of deciding upon which will would be the enforced document. 5 years of just waiting around to find out which one's going to prevail. It's a long time. So let's avoid that process, because a trust is like 90 days. 90 days to get a trust disseminated, all of the inheritance disseminated. And the reason is because you put the instructions there. You say, which heir gets what, or if you're doing a percentage, if they get 1/3 or 1/5, or depending on how many heirs you have, right? Or you can assign each heir a property, or whatever you want to do. It's your assets. You can disseminate it the way you want to. So if you don't give those instructions in a will, and if you don't put the covering of a trust over it, it goes to probate, and probate takes forever. And this is some of the stuff we're arguing in probate. Would the deceased trust their spouse enough to sign their name. Like, there's so many things that can come out in court, and it can really extend the process and just make things drawn out. And it's a costly procedure. You see how many people are representing the family. I think there's 5 children involved. All of them are adults, with the exception of one, which is the daughter in common between Dee and Dale, if I remember correctly. But each one of the children have a representative, or, you know, at least I know the guardian ad litem is there, plus 3 other attorneys. So you have all of that resource and funding for those individuals. Then Dale has his attorney to fight against whatever they are surmising and alleging against him, right? So the process is long. The heirs fight. The beneficiaries have an emotional time for an extended period of time. So I just implore you to get a trust so that you can avoid some of these concerns. And you make sure you put all your assets and include your businesses in the trust. If you have a partnership, include your partnership and your shares in the trust so that there's nothing lingering that has to go through probate. All right. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Send this video out so that those who have these type of concerns or questions can find the answers out just as we have done today. All right, Lyric Armstrong, your real estate agent and advocate. See you in the next video.